Hey guys, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I want to give a shout out to Matthew, my son, for allowing me to use not only his bedroom that has good lighting, but his little whiteboard so we can do some eco practice today. Okay, so I have a couple requests of what to cover. Someone has, who was it? I think it was Georgia. Georgia requested, can we go over the current and financial account really quick? So this is the balance of payments, BOP, current account, financial account. You should have all resources by now say financial account, but if you see the term in like an old maybe Quizlet or whatever that says the capital account, that also is the financial account. So just keep in mind that it used to be current and capital, now it's current and financial, but whatever's in the balance of payments categories is still the same. That hasn't changed. Current account is basically the majority of things. It's going to be all trade, all net exports, all trade. Remember, you can have a surplus of trade or a deficit of trade. So if you have a trade surplus, you are exporting more than you are importing. So more is leaving your country than coming in because you have a surplus, so a lot can leave. China has a trade surplus. If you have a trade deficit like the United States, then you have more people like buying. Hold on. You have a deficit. You don't have like enough goods, so you are buying more of others. You're importing more than you are exporting. So all trade goes in your current account. All unilateral transfers, that's just a one-way transfer of money. If you were to send like aid to another country, or if you were to just send money home, so like if the Taylor family send money to, we have some like relatives that live like in Mexico. We have some relatives that live in Austria. We have relatives that live in Cuba. And so if we were to like send money to those countries, we're not buying anything from them. We're just sending money. That would be a unilateral transfer. And then I'm going to quickly stop the current account and then go to financial account because that's all financial transactions, savings accounts, like in different countries, if you buy a bond from a different country, if you have stock in a different country, like if you have stock in like Nissan or Toyota, well, those aren't traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Those are foreign companies. Those would be traded on the Japanese Stock Exchange. Land in the form of like, you obviously don't live there. Because otherwise you would be there and it wouldn't be a balance of payments. So that must be land that you're using as some sort of financial investment, just to have like a plot of land. I don't know, like in like the Caribbean somewhere, you're using that as an investment. So that would be in the financial account. But any money made on these financial accounts, this is going to be over here in the current account. Profit from any of those. Profit from land, profit from your savings account, that would be interest. Profit from any bonds, that interest is accumulating on bonds. If you get any dividends from stock, that would also be in the current account. So profit made on financial investments is in the current account. The idea of that this is the balance of payments means they're going to cancel each other out. They're going to like get down to nothing. So if this is like positive 100 over here, we're going to have negative 100 over there. They're going to balance each other. Okay, so why would that be the case? Why would you have Toyota? Grace, thanks. Grace, yo. Grace, you're not in AP Macroeconomics. I don't even know how you got this link, but hello. So we have a surplus, it looks like, in the financial account. Surplus. Why would we have a surplus there? Why would there be an inflow of capital in the financial account? Capital being money in this unit. If you see inflow of capital, they're not talking about pizza ovens. They're talking about money. So unfortunately, this is the only time that capital is money. In every other unit with aggregate supply and demand and the Phillips curve, that would be like pizza ovens. Okay, so the reason that we would have a surplus in our financial account is like, why would people want our savings accounts? Maybe we have really high interest rates. So let's say that our interest rates in the United States are really high and that people are just dumping their money into our savings accounts. Okay, well, if they were to do that, that's going to appreciate the US dollar as everyone wants our currency. Oh, I have my notifications turned on. Okay, thanks, Grace. That would appreciate our currency. Well, if everyone wants, like, I can't even graph it. So our interest rates are high. People are going to demand the US dollar. So if this is Europe over dollar, we have quantity of dollar, demand, supply of dollar. There's going to be a lot of demand for our US dollar, which appreciates our dollar. Of course, if our dollar is appreciated, we can't, like, foreigners can't buy our goods because our currency is too expensive. And so if they're not going to want our goods, there's not going to be money coming into our current account, which is where that trade would take place. If our currency has appreciated like it just did, because everyone wants our high interest rates and our high, like, lots of return on financial investments, there's going to be money flowing in here and out of our current account because no one's going to want to buy our goods. So we'll be buying more of others, because if ours appreciates, theirs depreciates. So that's why there will be a deficit in this account. That's why there's going to be negative $100, because all the money's coming into this account for high interest. But then that makes our goods too expensive. So money's going to be flowing out of here as we buy cheaper imports elsewhere. So that's why we have an outflow here. That's why it balances out, if anyone was wondering. Outflow, also called a deficit. Oh, okay. So let's see what else people have said. Current account, good. Someone just shared, hold on. Bank balance sheets. Okay, this is for Han. Bank balance sheets, of course. I hate bank balance sheets. They're the worst. Okay, someone also is commenting. Bank balance sheets, yes. Okay, I got 2 requests just now for bank balance sheets. Of course, I only have 1 person watching, which is fine. You guys can watch this later. And as long as I help like 1 person, then this is all worth it. 1 person going from a 2 to a 3. That's my goal for today. Okay, so bank balance sheets. We've got assets on one side, liabilities on the other. Yeah, this is a really small board, but I mean, it's fine. Okay, so assets and liabilities. Remember, any money that this is a bank. This is, let's say, Wells Fargo. So this is the bank balance sheet for Wells Fargo. And our assets is any money that Wells Fargo owns. This is money that they have access to, any property that they could easily sell and turn it into cash. If they have a bond from the Federal Reserve, it's an asset for them, because, I mean, a bond is going to be an asset for like anybody that buys a bond from the Fed. And so bonds are going to be over here. Liabilities is any money that this bank owes. If they take out a loan from the Fed, it's going to be a liability. If they if anyone deposits money into this bank, the bank now owes that person. So all deposits. And remember, if you see the term deposits or checkable deposits or demand deposits, I'm trying to think of any other synonyms that they would use. Those are all checking accounts. Those are all mean checking accounts. So those are all going to be on the liability side. Remember, if you have to balance this, bank balance sheets are going to be like, their excess reserves are going to be the very last thing. Also, there was a question, a most missed question on a couple, maybe 1 test ago, 2 tests ago. And if you go on my channel, I think the video is called like number 46 or question 43, or I don't even know what number the question was. But if you look at that, I want you to like look at that question and then like pause the video and try to figure out. It's a multiple choice question that I just have posted. It's 1 question, but it was I think 5 people got it right. But but watch it. Watch the video. It's only like 4 minutes long, but it completely explains that question. So hopefully that'll help. Okay, so back to bank balance sheets. So let's just say that a customer comes in and deposits $10,000 into this account, into this bank, and the required reserve ratio is 10%. So $10,000 is going to be in demand deposits on the liability side. That would be deposits. And I just said the required reserve ratio is 10%. So remember, the RRR, the required reserve ratio, is a percentage of deposits, not just anything in liabilities, but just deposits only, that must be kept in reserves. So required reserves is going to be 10% of $10,000, which is $1,000. Okay, if that's the only thing that's happening, the other $9,000 is going to be in excess reserves. Okay, and this bank is balanced. So you might have questions like, with this $10,000 deposit, what is the max that they can loan? What's the max that they can loan? What's the max change in the banking system? And what's maybe the max change in money supply? Okay, those are 3 separate questions, and they can ask all 3 of those. If max loan is just this is not a max change, so you're not doing a multiplier problem just yet. It's just that the max they can loan is whatever they have in excess reserves. So that would be $9,000, because you have to keep $1,000 in the bank at all times, so you can't loan that out. But $9,000 you can. Hopefully, can you see that blue on the, I don't know, kind of hard to see. Okay, I can change it up. Let's do purple. I think you can see that better. Okay, let's stick with that. $9,000. Okay, well, the max change means that it's a multiplier problem. And so max change, well, you're using your money multiplier, which is the money multiplier, which is M. M equals 1 over the required reserve ratio, which is, in this case, 10%. They might tell you that. They might have you oh, if there's 1,000 that must be kept in reserves, what is the RRR? So it might be given to you, but then you might have to just solve it. And so it would be 1 over 0.1, which is 10%. 1 over 0.1 is 10, because you can move the decimal place over, and then it would be 10 divided by 1. You'd move the decimal place over on the numerator and the denominator, and it would be 10. So max change in the banking system is the entire deposit, not just what you can loan out. What you can loan out changes money supply, but the banking system is all of it, all of that $10,000 in deposits. So it's $10,000, which is the entire deposit, because it's staying in the bank. So not just the excess reserves, but the required reserves is staying in the bank. So the banking system would be the entire $10,000 times the money multiplier of 10 times 10 is $100,000. But if it said money supply, then you can only put in circulation what you can loan out. That required reserves is not going into money supply because it's staying in the bank. It's not in circulation. So it would be only the $9,000 that you loaned out. $9,000 that you loaned out times that money multiplier of 10 for $90,000. So there's going to be a $90,000 change in money supply. Hello, Jose, welcome. And there's going to be a $100,000 change in the banking system, all from that $10,000 initial deposit. Okay, so I'm going to do another bank balance sheet practice because the other only request that I got of something to cover was, I'll talk about aggregate supply and demand, but the request was, can you talk about all of the graphs? And well, there's no time in 30 minutes to talk about all of the graphs. That's the entire course. So probably won't go into all of the graphs, but I will do one more bank balance sheet practice thing. Okay. I got another request. Hold on. Foreign X shifters. Okay. Yes, I will talk about foreign exchange shifters, Bella, in a second. Okay, hold on. Or unless, is that what you want me to go straight to? Bella, are you watching this right now? Because if you are, you can like comment and I can see that a whole lot faster than like, yes. Yes, Jose says yes. Foreign exchange shifters. Okay. I can do that. If anyone wants me to go back to bank balance sheets, just like leave a message and I will. So foreign exchange shifters. So that's currency. Let's do, oh my gosh. Okay. You can do another bank balance. I can say, okay, I'll do another bank balance sheet because that's what's being requested now. So we have assets and liabilities. And once again, it's Wells Fargo. And let's say that there's in deposits, there's $50,000 in deposits. There's $30,000 in reserves. And there is, I don't know, let's say a bond. They bought a bond from the Fed for $10,000. And then there's 30, 40, that's $10,000 that was loaned out. Okay, we're balanced, so I can stop there. This is something that it would just be given to you and then it would ask several questions. Okay, so first question is how much, if RR is 20%, how much can this bank loan out? And a lot of people would say, oh, $10,000 they can loan out because that says loan right there. No, they've already loaned out $10,000. The question is, what can they loan? Like, what's a new loan that they could make? And it's whatever's in excess reserves is what they can loan out. Well, nothing here says excess reserves. We have reserves, but notice how it just says reserves and not required reserves. Reserves means total reserves. There's excess and required in that 30,000. So the key here is the required reserves is 20%. 20% of 50,000. Well, 20% of 50,000 is $20,000. Wait, is that right? Someone check my math. Is that right? 10% would be 5. 20% would be 10. Just kidding. Ha ha ha. 20% of $50,000 is $10,000. So that means 10,000 of these 30,000 is required. Whatever else is left, which is 20,000, is excess. So this reserves includes the 10,000 that is required, 10,000, 10K that just happens to be the required reserves, and the other 20,000 is excess reserves. Because 20% of 50,000 is not 30,000. Apparently, it's not even 20,000. It's $10,000. So what can they loan out? A new loan that they can make is 20,000, because that is what is in excess reserves. If it said then what's the maximum change in like money supply and in the banking, no, they wouldn't say the banking system, in money supply? Well, if they loan out $20,000 and the RRR is 20%, well, the money multiplier is going to be 1 over 0.2, which is 5. So then it's that 20,000 that you would loan out from excess reserves times 5, and that would be 100,000. I'm dumb. Sometimes I'm dumb. Okay, math is, Saturday. Okay, so that was one bank balance sheet. Keep in mind that if got it. Okay, so let's say that the Fed, so this bond was bought from the Fed. But now let's say for whatever reason, the Fed is doing expansionary monetary policy and they're buying this bond back from Wells Fargo. Then there's like this bond gets taken away, and that $10,000 goes into excess reserves. I'm ignoring this. Just pretend it's not there. That $10,000 goes into excess reserves, and then they say, okay, now what will money, if they loan out that, what will money supply change by? Well, it's the entire 10,000 times the money multiplier. You don't have to figure out what like 80% of this number would be. You don't have to worry about like required reserves, because the required reserves is only from like a percentage of deposits. If they are talking about bonds here, you're using the entire amount. You don't have to take out 20% of it. You would just do all 10,000 times that money multiplier for whatever. Okay. Now let's talk about foreign exchange. We have only 9 more minutes. Unless people can think of some like more things for me to talk about, you can like type and like I don't know how you comment on live videos. But this kind of hits the like, can you talk about more graphs? So we'll talk about aggregate supply and demand, and we'll talk about currency, and I'm going to see if I can squeeze a Phillips curve on here. I don't know. So let's see. I'm going to put like supply and demand, Phillips curve, and the currency down. And I'm just going to put it, just to make it simple, I'm going to put it in long run equilibrium. Price level. Those of you that are watching, can you hear me okay? Because I don't know. So like message me or something that like, do I turn up my volume or do I just talk louder? Boop, 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 boop. We got inflation, unemployment, short run Phillips curve, long run Phillips curve. Boop, 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 boop. 1, 1. Just got a message and it says, I can hear you. Yay! Okay. So here is just aggregate supply and demand with price level on the Y, Y on the X. Aggregate demand sloped downwards, short run aggregate supply sloped upwards, long run aggregate supply. Remember, long run aggregate supply does shift. Whatever shifts the PPF curve shifts LRAS. Just we won't physically draw it. We'll write about it. We have inflation and unemployment, short run Phillips curve, long run Phillips curve. Remember, long run Phillips curve does not shift. That would be redefining what it means to be naturally the natural rate of unemployment. You can't do that. Also, I would, as you're studying this weekend and over the next couple of days, don't forget to look at like, why is aggregate demand? Remember Oken's law? No one ever does. Oken's law, for every 1% that unemployment goes up above the natural rate, GDP actually falls by 2%. So if unemployment goes up from 4 to 5%, then, well, that's not above the natural rate, from 6 to 7%, then GDP falls by 2%. So little things like that, they're like, oh, I know my shifters, but then it's like, what's this definition? I'm like, oh, so don't forget to look at that. And let's talk about currency. Let's do the dollar and the euro. US dollar, euro over dollar. Remember, whatever's in the denominator is what that graph is. Demand, supply. And then this is going to be dollar over euro. Quantity of euro. I'm honestly really surprised that no one's like busted it on me. Like I'm being completely left alone. The dog's not scratching at the door. Matthew is, I have no idea what he's doing. Okay. So let's just say the scenario is that inflation is 2%. Let me write this down. Inflation is 2% higher in USA. And I'm going to do this first and this second. Okay. Inflation is 2% higher in the United States. Well, remember, inflation is prices are higher. So prices are higher now in the United States. And so as a European, it's like, hey, okay, let me just think of it as an American. That might be easier. Inflation is really high here. Things are expensive in the United States. I'm going to buy things in Europe. Demand for the euro, because I need like the euro to buy European stuff, the demand for the euro increases and shifts to the right. And I, as an American, I'm going to dump my dollar on the counter to exchange it for that euro. So there's more supply of the euro, of the dollar, more supply of the dollar, which depreciates the dollar, and more demand for that euro since things are so cheap over there. And that appreciates the euro. So the dollar is depreciated, the euro is appreciated. And remember the 3 rules of currency. One will appreciate, one will depreciate. There will be a shift of supply and one shift of demand, and they'll be shifting in the same direction. This is shifting, demand is shifting to the right for the euro, but supply is shifting also to the right, but this time for the dollar. You could have also thought of it a different way. I thought of it as an American, like, I don't want to buy things here, that's too expensive, let me demand over there. Or you could think of it as a European, and you could have demand for the dollar fall and demand for the dollar shift to the left, and supply of the euro also shift to the left as they keep their money to themselves, not wanting our dollar. Either way, you will have the dollar depreciate and the euro appreciate. Okay. Now we're going to take the answers to that, not the scenario. Forget the scenario. The scenario has been graphed. Done. We're going to take the answer to our graph, which is the dollar depreciating, and then we're going to change our aggregate supply and the Phillips curve, or aggregate supply and demand and the Phillips curve. Because if you take your scenario and graph this, that's not how an FRQ works. They'll typically like, here's a scenario, here's an answer. Now take the answer to that answer and there's a new question for it. So now the scenario is the dollar has depreciated. How does that affect our aggregate supply and demand graph and the Phillips curve? So remember, if it depreciates, that's a little arrow, that's a little D, depreciates, XN goes up. If the dollar just depreciated because no one wanted our currency, well, that makes our currency cheaper. It depreciated, our currency is cheaper. So foreigners will actually now buy our things again, which is kind of funny. Like, they didn't want to buy it before because it was too expensive. But then as soon as they don't want to buy it, it becomes cheaper again. It's supply and demand, whatever. And when things like it depreciated, now our net exports are going to increase as we're exporting now. Now they're cheap. It was expensive in the first scenario, but because it was, now it's cheap, and net exports will go up. Aggregate demand will increase because remember, the shifters of aggregate demand are changes in consumption, investment spending, government spending, and net exports, and that's what we're shifting, net exports. Aggregate demand shifts to the right. Prices go up. GDP increases. And an aggregate demand shift causes a movement on the Phillips curve. If aggregate supply had shifted, that would have been a shift of the Phillips curve, but aggregate demand shifted to the right, which creates an upward movement up here, going from like 1 to 2, which makes sense because if prices go up here, there better be more inflation over here. And GDP is increasing, which means the economy is getting better. So unemployment will actually fall. The economy is getting better. So if aggregate demand had shifted to the left, there would have been a downward movement. Aggregate demand shifted to the right, so it was an upward movement. And then if aggregate supply shifted, it causes an opposite shift of the Phillips curve. So if aggregate supply, here's aggregate supply. If aggregate supply shifted to the left, Phillips curve would have shifted to the right. If aggregate supply shifted to the right, Phillips curve would have shifted to the left. So it shifts in opposite directions. So it is 3:29 now. Are there any last requests before I pack this up? Honestly, you're no bother. It's either this or doing laundry. And honestly, I like graphing a whole lot more than I like doing laundry. So you have about 1 minute to give me a text and tell me what you want, or you can type and tell me. We had a garage sale this morning. We sold a whole bunch of junk, which is nice. Ooh, I got a request. Maybe. Money supply and loanable funds. Okay. 2 separate topics, but I can do it. Here we go. All right, Ken. nutty. It says Ken on my phone. You pop up as Ken. It actually doesn't even pop up as Ken. It pops up as maybe Ken. Whatever. It's weird. Okay. So let me do the first request of money supply. So this is going to, when you're graphing money supply, you're talking about monetary policy. Either like discretionary monetary policy, like they are actively buying and selling bonds to slow down or speed up the economy, or automatic monetary policy, which is, well, hold on. Remember, money market graph is going to have money supply, nominal interest rates. Man, I forgot for a second. Nominal interest rates, the quantity of money on the x-axis. Money supply is vertical. I saw a whole bunch of people drawing upward sloping money supply graphs the other day, and I wanted to scream. So money supply. Wow, okay, let me try to think if there's a way to remember money supply is vertical besides just memorizing it. And then money demand is downward sloping. Also, don't forget when you're studying to go back and look at reasons why money demand is downward sloping. Why is there a negative relationship between the nominal interest rates and the quantity of money in circulation? Don't forget to look at these little things. It might be the little things like that you get to the test and you're all like, and it's one of those things you either know it or you don't. Okay, so money supply is shifted by monetary policy. Technically, more specifically, the buying and selling of bonds. Bonds. Well, I don't want to do that. I want to do that. That money supply technically is M1. That's the money in circulation. M1 being like cash, coins, checks, traveler's checks, debit cards, whatever. Credit cards are not money. So M1, this is shifted. Money supply is shifted by the Fed buying or selling bonds. If they wanted to expand the economy, the Fed will buy bonds from banks, and that will shift money supply to the right because there's more money in circulation. They buy bonds and give banks money so they can put it in their excess reserves and then loan it out. Money supply, too, is the buying of bonds. Not only does it put more money in circulation, when there's more money in circulation, it's going to drive down interest rates. So businesses will take out more loans and buy more pizza and pizza ovens and capital stock and grow the economy in the long run. Unfortunately, that could lead to inflation. And that means that they're going to do contractionary monetary policy, where the Fed is going to sell bonds. Here's a bond, bank. Oh, I'm going to take that money from you. There's less money now for the banks to loan out. And what they have left is higher interest rates because money supply is going to shift to the left when they sell bonds, raising interest rates. So I'm going from M1, there's no 1 there, but 1. M1 to MS2 is buying bonds. Buy bonds. When the Fed buys bonds. When the Fed sells bonds, it shifts to the left. Okay. That's discretionary monetary policy. If they, I'm going to erase this. Even if they don't do anything, if the Federal Reserve doesn't buy or sell bonds, interest rates are still going to change because of automatic monetary policy. So we have nominal interest rates, quantity of money, money supply, money demand. So let's say that we slip into a recession and aggregate demand falls as people are spending less money. Well, if people are spending less money, you know what they need less of? Money, because they're not spending it, so they don't need it. Like, the needing of money is you like reaching into your wallet. If you're not reaching into your wallet because you just lost your job, you don't need money. And so money demand, this is monetary policy, but it's monetary policy like accidentally. This has nothing to do with bonds. This is you not needing money in a recession. You not needing money causes money demand to fall and causes interest rates to fall. And that right there stimulates the economy. Because if interest rates fall, sure, we're in a recession, but now it's cheaper for businesses to take out a loan. They'll take out a loan. They'll buy more pizza ovens and blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, that could lead to inflation. And then, you need a lot of, during inflation, money because now things cost more, so you need more money. You need more money in an inflation. Money demand increases, shifts to the right, raising interest rates, and that will slow down that inflation because now if interest rates are too high, businesses are going to take out as many loans, so forth and so on. That's money market. Let's talk about loanable funds. And I think that might be it. Okay. Loanable funds. Loanable funds is the supply and demand of money in the bank available for loans, where the real interest rates, quantity of loanable funds, demand, and supply. Okay. So let's talk about what could shift this graph. What could shift that demand curve? Well, if people are demanding more or demanding less loans, if they need to take out loans for school, then that's more demand for loans. If they're taking out less loans for school, whatever. It's basically anything that would change the amount of people's taking out loans besides interest rates, because a change of interest rates cannot shift this graph because it's on the y-axis. Whatever the y-axis is labeled of any graph can't shift what's on the graph. So, but mainly you're going to be using this graph to talk about crowding in and crowding out. So and currency, because here's the thing. When we just talked about balance of payments at the very front of this video, we talked about how, if we have high interest rates, foreigners will now like go to dump all their money into our savings accounts, and that's going to be on the financial account of the balance of payments, and blah, blah, blah. It's going to be an inflow in our financial account. Well, where's that money inflowing to? It's inflowing to our banks. They're putting their money into our banks, which means that's what this graph shows us, money in the bank. And so if they're dumping all their money into our banks because there's high interest rates, there's going to be more supply of money in the bank. They're not taking out, foreigners aren't taking out loans. So when like currency is talking about this and foreigners cannot shift the demand for loans because they can't get loans, but they definitely shift how much money is available in the bank to be given out to other customers. So if foreigners come to our bank and put their money into our bank, it actually drives down the interest rate, which is kind of funny because they were here to take advantage of our high interest rates. And because they do that, that makes the interest rates fall. And then eventually they'll leave. They'll leave and they'll be like, oh, I don't like interest isn't earning anything in the United States. And then they'll take their money out of our bank. And then supply of loanable funds will shift to the left, which raises interest rates. And then they'll be like, man, I just left there. Now interest rates are high. And then they come back. And so it's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth of them coming for high interest rates, but then leaving because them wanting it makes them fall. Okay. The other thing that loanable funds is changed by is fiscal policy. I hear my family in the background. I wonder how much longer I can get away with locking myself up in a room. Okay. So let's talk about like fiscal policy. We have expansionary fiscal policy and contractionary fiscal policy. Oh no, we're in a recession. We need to expand the economy. And so we're going to lower taxes. Yay. So everyone has more disposable income and buy more things and consumption goes up and aggregate demand shifts to the right. Or we can raise government spending. We'll probably do that because the spending multiplier actually yields a bigger effect than the tax multiplier does. And so that, yay, the economy fixes itself. We're good. Well, if that plays out in the long run, this actually creates a deficit. You see the word deficit spending on Wednesday? They're saying, hey, by the way, we're totally doing expansionary fiscal policy. So you see the word deficit, just put like code, that's code for expansionary fiscal policy. It's also code for higher interest rates. So because when they have a deficit and the government spends too much money, they borrow from the banks. This is a bank. Supply and demand of money in the bank. And if they take our money from the bank to cover the deficit that they just ran, there's going to be less supply of loans, which drives up interest rates in the long run and then crowds on investment spending. But then on the flip side, and that's called crowding out. Crowding out, where real interest rates are driven up because of a deficit, because of deficit spending. But on the flip side of that, let's say that there's an inflationary gap or something, and they're trying to slow down our spending. They're trying to slow down the economy, decrease aggregate demand, bring it back a little bit. Then they might raise taxes or cut government spending. And yay, they closed the gap. Fantastic. In the short run, it totally works. And like you have closed that gap of however much money with whatever NPS and NPC and all that good stuff. Because, all those questions are related. That creates a surplus. The government is bringing in more money, yet they're spending less of it. So eventually they're going to have all this extra money that they brought in taxes. And you know what they no longer need? They no longer need a loan from the bank. And that's called the idea of crowding in. Man, I have to erase my graph. Fine. Real interest rates. That says real interest rates. Quantity of loanable funds, demand, supply. Now it's crowding in. So there's a surplus. I'm the government. I have all this extra money. I no longer need. You could shift supply or demand for crowding in or crowding out. For whatever reason, I always shift supply for crowding out. But then when I talk about crowding in, I always shift demand because I think there's less supply of the money if they take it all. But then I say, well, then they don't need a loan over here if they have a surplus. So they don't demand a loan. And I always shift demand to the left for crowding in. As long as interest rates are falling for crowding in, you've got it right. Interest rates fall. And that right there will cause businesses to spend even more money, probably causing inflation, the thing that you just tried to fix, but now is undoing itself because of the long run effects of it. So real interest rates this time fall because of a surplus. Okay. You have about 1 minute to tell me if there's anything you guys need to cover. Anything else? And let me erase my board. Hopefully everyone's having a good weekend. Remember, tomorrow is Mother's Day. Thank your mother for bringing you into the world. And spend some, clean the house. That's what she wants. She wants to wake up. She wants to sleep in, wake up late, 10. And she wants the house to be clean when she wakes up. I probably won't be getting that because I can't sleep late anymore. And I already cleaned the house, so I guess I could wake up clean. But I won't stay in that for very long. Trying to see if anyone's saying anything. No one's saying anything. Well, I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I am going to go have some water because my throat is quite parched for talking for 45 minutes on Saturday. Anywho, have a good weekend, guys, and I'll see you on. Oh, I forgot to say. I haven't collected any money for pizza on Wednesday. I want to get you guys pizza on Wednesday because you guys have a noon test and you guys are taking a lunch. And if you guys bring in $1 per slice, I'll order as many slices as you buy. So $1 per slice. It's going to be from Papa John's. I'm going to order like majority of pepperoni and then a few cheese pizzas, and it's first come, first serve, like you reserve your slice. It just doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the slice of cheese or pepperoni that you want. But I need that money Monday or Tuesday because I'm going to be ordering it Tuesday after school. So you need to bring me $1 per slice of pizza that you want on Wednesday, Monday or Tuesday. I will send out a remind just in case you guys forget. Whatever. But that's about it. Okay, guys, have a great weekend. See you Monday.